Welcome to Novel Love Hearing. Get ready for heart-pounding action, thrilling adventures with fresh and unique elements, a touch of romance, and a dash of harem. Everything you're craving is right here. We're excited to have you join us on this journey. So come along to Novel Love Hearing, we're waiting for you. As a small favor, please consider sharing Novel Love Hearing with your friends, family, in YouTube comments, on Discord, Reddit, or anywhere else you hang out online. Happy listening, and enjoy the ride. Chapter 92, What kind of family spends like this? Most white-grade components require only 100 units of iron ore to craft. Then, upgrading from level 1 to level 2 requires another 100 units, and from level 2 to level 3, 200 units are needed. This pattern continues, with each subsequent level requiring an additional 100 units of iron ore. As for most green-grade components, crafting them typically costs 500 units of iron ore. Upgrading from level 1 to level 2 requires 200 units, and from level 2 to level 3, 400 units are needed. Each level upgrade adds 200 units of iron ore. Of course, this isn't an absolute rule. Some special components, like carriage steel armor and wind fire wheel, consume more iron ore both for crafting and upgrading, especially the armor, which is the most resource-intensive component he has ever seen. So far, he hasn't even witnessed the supermodel effect of this component, nor does he know when he'll be fortunate enough to see it. It's ridiculously resource-consuming. The level 5 supermodel effect of the Train Auxiliary Eye is Hive Mind. With each upgrade, the eye's intelligence improves, allowing it to communicate more efficiently with the train conductor. Its computational power and information processing capabilities also get enhanced. On the train, this translates to the ability to control more components simultaneously, like managing oxygen production while activating the targeting radar and locking onto enemies within the radar's range with a heavy machine gun. Currently, the trend is that most components on the train are now controlled by the Train Auxiliary Eye, making its leveling up extremely important. After upgrading it to level 10, he obtained a brand new supermodel effect. Train Auxiliary Eye Level 10 Supermodel Effect can perform network intrusion, decryption, and bypass most network firewalls. Network intrusion? Chen Meng frowned slightly. This world does have the internet, but it's the apocalypse. Who the hell is maintaining the network now? The internet has long since collapsed. This supermodel effect feels like it's been over-engineered for nothing. However, he soon began to ponder thoughtfully. While there's no network in the wasteland, there might still be connected areas in higher-level regions. Perhaps this skill could come in handy someday. Having it is still better than not. More skills never hurt anyone. It's like learning to swim. Most people might never fall into water in their lifetime, but if they do, that skill becomes their lifeline. After upgrading the Train Auxiliary Eye, he turned his attention to the Auxiliary Universal Wheel. This was a special component. It wasn't among the 12 components that a level 2 train could craft, but he remembered it vividly. Back when he was a slave on Master Kun's train, Master Kun had been reluctant to craft the Auxiliary Universal Wheel. As a result, the train wasn't as agile, and when they were nearly surrounded by a corpse tide, they had to abandon all the carriages and flee alone. The effect of this component was simple. It significantly increased the train's agility, allowing it to make tighter turns without the needing to take wide arcs. Crafting the Universal Wheel was expensive. It required 5,000 units of iron ore, which explained why Master Kun had been reluctant back then. It was indeed pricey, but at least there were no additional iron ore costs for upgrades. It was a one-time expense. This component couldn't be upgraded. Its level automatically matched the train's level. For example, a level 2 train's universal wheel would be level 2. He had tried. Even with his level 0 permission for infinite upgrade, he couldn't upgrade this component. It simply didn't have the option to upgrade. As the train's level increased, the turning radius would become even smaller. After crafting it, 3 wheel-like structures, similar to aircraft landing gear, appeared beneath the center of each carriage, assisting with turning. Besides this, Chen Ming narrowed his eyes and turned his gaze to other components he had never upgraded before. Since he experimentally upgraded the train radio, a seemingly unremarkable component, to level 10 and obtained the remote trading supermodel effect, he had been filled with anticipation for these seemingly ordinary components. Even if 9 out of 10 supermodel effects were useless, as long as there was one like remote trading, it would be a huge win. To be honest, he believed that apart from him, no one else in the Iron Ridge wasteland would bother upgrading the train radio, as upgrading it yielded no noticeable effects. After scanning the train cabin, his eyes landed on the telescope. This was one of the 17 white-grade components available for crafting on a level 1 train. Like the single bed, it was a single product, not a production line. Crafting this telescope only cost 10 units of iron ore. A real bargain. Before he had the targeting radar, the telescope was almost his only means of scouting distant areas. After obtaining the targeting radar, he hadn't used the telescope in a long time. It was only when he looked around the train cabin that he remembered this component. Crafting it only required 10 units of iron ore, and upgrading it cost even less. It only took 550 units of iron ore to upgrade it to level 10. After upgrading, the viewing distance increased, and the clarity improved, though it still couldn't compare to the targeting radar. The radar could even display the appearance of creatures and information about monsters, details the telescope couldn't provide, not to mention enemies deep underground or behind walls, which were clearly visible on the radar. After reaching level 10, he obtained 2 supermodel effects. Telescope level 5 supermodel effect can display the level of monsters within the lens. Telescope level 10 supermodel effect can perform thermal imaging. Both supermodel effects were quite basic, essentially simplified versions of the targeting radar. After all, it was only crafted with 10 units of iron ore, you couldn't expect too much. And upgrading it to level 10 only cost 550 units of iron ore. At that price, what more could you ask for? However, this thing was quite suitable for novice train conductors. Originally, Chen Meng had set the telescope aside, ready to continue inspecting the train for other components he hadn't crafted yet. But just as he turned his gaze to the sound system, he suddenly remembered something and picked up the telescope again. The first supermodel effect was unlocked at level 5. The second was at level 10. And upon reaching level 20, the third supermodel effect would be unlocked. Currently, none of the components on his train had reached level 20, and none had a third supermodel effect. A thought suddenly popped into his mind: what would the third supermodel effect be if he upgraded this component to level 20? Of course, it was probably nothing. Like the train headlight, which had no level 10 supermodel effect, some basic components simply didn't have many supermodel effects. But since the telescope required so few resources to upgrade, it wouldn't hurt to experiment. After consuming 1,550 units of iron ore, he upgraded this Y-Trade telescope to level 20. And thus, he obtained the third supermodel effect. Telescope level 20 supermodel effect can see through illusions. Illusions? A hint of confusion flashed in Chen Meng's eyes. Seeing a Buddhist term like illusions in the apocalypse felt incredibly out of place. And he had no idea what it meant. What did seeing through illusions even entail? He immediately picked up the telescope and looked out at the slave sitting on the ground, eating in the cave. It was fine until he looked. What he saw left him speechless. It truly was seeing through illusions. Through the telescope, all the slaves were now sitting on the ground completely naked, stripped of all illusions. But he looked down at the telescope in his hand. If this were modern society, this thing would undoubtedly be highly sought after. Not because everyone was a pervert, but because every human being has an innate desire to secretly observe others. Especially the thrill of peeking at someone's private life. It's addictive. It wasn't just about seeing people naked. For example, peeking at someone's diary, checking their social media, or spying on their daily life. But in the apocalypse, the existence of such a thing was rather pointless. After all, he was the train conductor of the stellar train. If he really wanted to, he could just start selecting concubines. Why would he need a telescope? He could just have them line up, cleaned and ready, for him to pick one by one. That's what he thought. But Chen Meng picked up the telescope again and looked out at the slaves. It still felt quite novel. Was this the charm of black technology? It was indeed a bit too black. After a moment, he weighed the telescope in his hand and couldn't help but laugh as he tossed it aside. Here he was, holding a level 20 telescope. No one would believe he had upgraded a telescope to level 20. He could have just upgraded it to level 10 and sold it. Many novice-trained conductors would find it useful. But it wasn't worth it. A level 10 telescope already cost 560 units of iron ore to produce. Novice-trained conductors were dirt poor. How much could he sell it for? If he priced it too low, he wouldn't make much profit. If he priced it too high, those novice-trained conductors couldn't afford it. Besides, they didn't even have a train radio, so there was no way to contact them to sell the thing. There was simply no sales channel. He couldn't just wander around the wasteland looking for novice-trained conductors. He might as well spend that time mining. Moreover, he wasn't too keen on exposing his infinite upgrade secret. A person should maintain some mystery. Being too transparent wasn't good. Finally, Chen Meng turned his gaze to the car audio and the internal fire control system. These were the only two components he hadn't upgraded yet. He was particularly curious about the supermodel effect of the former. Oh, and there was one more component he hadn't upgraded. The 5.56mm rifle ammunition production line. It produced the bullets used in the Soaring Dragon assault rifle. The last ammunition production line he upgraded was for the heavy machine gun. After upgrading these three components, Most of the components on the stellar train aside from some prohibitively expensive ones like the armor would be at level 10. Once he upgraded both the heavy machine gun and rifle ammunition production lines to level 5, he might be able to add some special effects to the bullets, like armor-piercing rounds, and obtain corresponding supermodel effects. Then, the stellar train would truly be a fully maxed-out level 2 train. There were over a dozen level 3 trains in the Iron Ridge Wasteland, but none of them had the same level of foundation as the stellar train, which was still only level 2. In terms of foundation, he even felt that some level 4 trains in higher level regions might. Well, that might be pushing it, but the level 3 trains in the Iron Ridge Wasteland definitely couldn't compare to his foundation. It hasn't been easy. After finalizing his plans, Chen Ming felt a weight lift off his shoulders. Looking at the reassuring amount of iron ore on the train panel, he leaned back in his chair, satisfied, and lit a cigarette, letting the smoke rise to the ceiling and drift out through the skylight. It had been so many days since he arrived in this world. Only now did he finally feel like he had truly established his roots here. Once he finished mining all the iron ore in the Iron Ridge Wasteland, the monsters in the Kunlun Mountains region would never be able to chase him like they did last time. After 3 days apart, one should look at someone with new eyes. But Chen Meng glanced at the control screen, where the number 4 living carriage in the cola production line had their integrity dropped to 70%. Logically, the train would often take damage. There must be a way to repair the integrity loss, as it affected the functionality of the components. For example, when the spider leg integrity dropped, its maximum speed decreased significantly. Surely, you couldn't just replace the component every time it got damaged? What kind of family spends like this? He asked about it in the train radio, but no one answered. Only the bloodthirsty Mad Bull train privately messaged him, saying that they had once heard a level 3 train conductor mention in the radio that after upgrading the train to level 3, there was a way to repair damaged components. Before reaching level 3, you just had to make do with damaged components. If they became completely unusable, you had to replace them. Chen Ming naturally understood why no level 3 train conductors were willing to answer. Firstly, they had no obligation to do so. Secondly, they probably didn't want to tell him, especially since he, a level 2 train conductor, was firmly holding the top spot on the leaderboard. They were likely a bit annoyed. Even if they didn't dare show it openly, they could still choose to ignore him, right? His response was simple: that wasn't acceptable. Before leaving the Iron Ridge Wasteland, he would visit each of them personally, especially the Zen, which had once challenged him to a confrontation. He wondered how the Zen, which had recently challenged him, felt now that the stellar train was rapidly climbing and firmly holding the top spot on the Iron Ridge Wasteland Power Value Regional Leaderboard. They must be feeling a bit of regret. They were probably praying that he wasn't a vengeful person. But unfortunately, he was exactly that kind of person. Without a confrontation, you wouldn't know how reckless Chen Manji's Meng really was. Chen Meng glanced at the birthmark on the back of his hand, the character for Ming, and chuckled softly. When life is going well, everything feels good. If only life could always be this smooth. Chapter 93, is this considered a hidden supermodel effect? Chen Meng glanced at the iron ore units on the train panel. There were still 61,000 units left. These 110,000 units of iron ore were quite durable. Without much hesitation, he immediately spent 4,400 units of iron ore to upgrade the car audio component to level 10, gaining 2 corresponding supermodel effects. This was a white-tier component, so upgrading it didn't consume too many resources. Car audio level 5 supermodel effect: if the train is equipped with the headlights and train auxiliary eye components, the headlights will automatically change their light and color while playing music, creating a stage light show that syncs with the rhythm of the song through visual effects. Car audio level 10 supermodel effect: can emit ultrasonic noise above 20,000 Hz. If the energy stone consumed is of a high enough level, it can produce ultrasonic noise of an even higher frequency. The first supermodel effect is self-explanatory. Normal humans can hear sound frequencies ranging from about 20 Hz to 20,000 Hz, a natural evolutionary trait. If one could hear sounds at lower frequencies, they might even hear the movement of their internal organs, leading to a life filled with constant noise. Sounds above 20,000 Hz are already beyond human hearing. After pondering for a while, Chen Ming couldn't think of any practical application for this supermodel effect, unless there were monsters that could hear extremely high-frequency sounds, and this sound system could be used to attack them with noise. Well, whatever. Having it is better than not having it. Next, he turned his attention to the internal fire control system component. This was currently the only component on the stellar train with its gun barrels pointed inward. Its production cost was steep, requiring a full 1,000 units of iron ore. Among green-tier vehicle components, it was already considered expensive. The upgrade cost was also quite high. He hadn't been willing to upgrade it before, but now that he had more iron ore, he naturally decided to upgrade everything he had previously hesitated on. To be honest, upgrading this component was somewhat unnecessary. After all, this component was designed with its gun barrels pointed inward. Humans aren't monsters. Whether a heavy machine gun is equipped with level 1 or level 10 heavy machine gun bullets, a single shot would still be fatal. This component was essentially a combination of several miniature heavy machine guns, with one embedded in the ceiling at the end of each carriage. Just like the heavy machine gun, upgrading this component didn't increase its power. It only improved attributes like firing rate and range. The actual lethality of the bullets fired depended on the level of the bullets loaded. A low-level heavy machine gun couldn't use high-level bullets. To use level 3 bullets, the heavy machine gun had to be upgraded to level 3. So, theoretically, this component was perfectly functional at level 1. The reason he upgraded it to level 10 was purely to see the supermodel effects, just in case he missed out on some overpowered ones. After spending 45,000 units of iron ore, the internal fire control system, a green tier component, was upgraded to level 10, and 2 brand new supermodel effects emerged. Internal fire control system level 5 supermodel effect, can fire blank cartridges, consuming 1 unit of iron ore per 10 blank cartridges. Internal fire control system level 10 supermodel effect, can fire nerve bullets, which are non-lethal but cause excruciating pain. A trace of confusion flashed in Chen Ming's eyes. It wasn't that these 2 supermodel effects were too strong, but rather, he had originally thought that the internal fire control system was like the makeshift heavy machine gun, where upgrades only increased attributes like firing rate and range. He hadn't expected that upgrading the internal fire control system would also increase the number of heavy machine guns mounted on the ceiling of each carriage. Originally, the stellar train had 10 carriages and 1 locomotive. Each carriage and a locomotive had 1 heavy machine gun mounted on the ceiling. Now, each carriage had 10 heavy machine guns on its ceiling. Inside the train, sitting at the control panel, Chen Ming looked up at the 10 heavy machine guns embedded in the ceiling of the locomotive, their dark muzzles directly aimed at the door of the control room. The intimidation factor was off the charts. A riot? Now there was no need to worry about riots anymore. What a joke. The stellar train currently had only 4 externally facing makeshift heavy machine guns mounted on the carriages, but there were a whopping 110 internally facing miniature heavy machine guns mounted on the ceilings. With these 110 heavy machine guns in place, even if 1,000 slaves rioted, or even double that number, they could be wiped out effortlessly. Efficiency at its finest. What a lunatic. Outside the train. Uncle Lee, any leads? A young man sneakily approached Uncle Lee and whispered. Yes. Uncle Lee squinted slightly as he looked at a middle-aged man in the distance. He had found a suitable target. During his observation today, he noticed that although this man appeared to be working hard while mining, he was also constantly eyeing the train's external components. He wasn't sure what the man was scheming. But this man was clearly a dangerous individual, with some hidden agenda. Just then the middle-aged man suddenly broke away from the group, quickly finished the bread in his hand, and stealthily headed toward the number 10 goblin car, clearly planning to do something shady. The opportunity has come. Uncle Lee's eyes lit up, and he immediately stood up and followed, also heading toward the number 10 goblin car. Finally, he had a chance to make a name for himself. As long as he could apprehend this middle-aged man the moment he tried to pull something, he would earn Lord Ming's favor, and from then on, promotions, wealth, and glory would be within reach. Quick, follow. Got it. The young man didn't hesitate either, immediately picking up the rock from the ground, stuffing it into his pocket, and striding after Uncle Lee. After a day of mining, the pickaxes had to be handed in and redistributed the next day. Just a dozen or so seconds after the middle-aged man sneakily entered the number 10 goblin car alone, Uncle Lee arrived with his trusted subordinate. Uncle Lee excitedly scanned the interior of the carriage, ready to find the middle-aged man who was presumably up to no good. But after looking around, he didn't see anyone in the carriage. Upon closer inspection, he found that the middle-aged man had already climbed into his refrigerator, found a spot near the door, and lay down on the ground, preparing to sleep. Uncle Lee was momentarily stunned by this scene. What was going on? With that sneaky demeanor, it was obvious he was planning something, but now he was just here to sleep? In his daze, it felt like his dream of wealth and glory had shattered. He even muttered unconsciously, "Aren't you here to cause trouble?" Cause trouble? The middle-aged man, lying at the entrance of the refrigerator, turned his head to look at Uncle Lee and the young man, then found a more comfortable position and lay back down, his voice filled with exhaustion. "If you're planning something, don't drag me into it. From the moment I first laid eyes on Lord Ming, the word loyalty has been etched in my mind. I would never do anything to harm Lord Ming or the stellar train in this lifetime. In life, I belong to Lord Ming, in death, I am his ghost. If you're plotting something, stay away from me. I won't get involved. I just want to mine. Huh? Uncle Lee furrowed his brows. Was this guy talking nonsense? With that sneaky, suspicious demeanor, he was now spouting words of loyalty? Just then Uncle Lee, the young man standing beside him cautiously poked Uncle Lee and weakly pointed to the ceiling of the number 10 goblin slave car. Maybe you should look up. Uncle Lee, not knowing what was happening, instinctively looked up and immediately fell into a silent, expressionless stare. After a long while, he went to check carriages 7, 8, and 9, then said nothing and simply jumped off the carriage, walked to the underground river, and gazed at the rushing water with despair in his eyes. 10. 10 of them. A damn 10 heavy machine guns, mounted upside down on the ceiling of each slave carriage, covering every corner without any blind spots. In just 10 seconds, they could completely clear out a carriage full of slaves. Easier than slaughtering chickens. He clearly remembered that this morning, before the mining started, there was only one heavy machine gun on the ceiling of each carriage. How had it turned into 10 by the time they returned? Yes. He understood. With the increase in slaves, it was necessary to add some internal deterrents to ensure Lord Meng's authority. If it were him, he would have done the same. But Lord Meng, aren't you being a bit too cautious? Were these 10 internally facing heavy machine guns per carriage really just for deterrence? Or were they there so that if you were in a bad mood one day, you could just wipe everyone out in 10 seconds and get a new batch of slaves? Uncle Lee, the young man cautiously approached and awkwardly whispered, so, are we still going ahead with the plan? This time, Uncle Lee was silent for even longer. Finally, he couldn't help but curse, plan my ass. With this setup, who would dare to cause trouble? Even the most reckless troublemaker would tremble at the sight of those 10 heavy machine guns. There are only 4 heavy machine guns facing outward on the train, but inside, there's a damn 100 plus. Who would dare to riot? Yeah. The young man nodded in agreement, I think so too. So, do you have another plan, Uncle Lee? Another plan? There's no plan. Uncle Lee, feeling embarrassed and angry, turned to the young man, why do you keep asking me for plans? What do you take me for? An external brain. Uncle Lee took a deep breath, then turned back to look at the river water crashing against the rocks. After calming himself, he spoke word by word. Don't rush me. Give me some time, and I'll definitely come up with a new plan. The plan of making a name for ourselves by dealing with troublemakers is no longer viable. Let me think of something else. Uncle Lee, actually, I have an idea. Go on. I think the stellar train is short on management personnel now, especially with so many slaves. Why don't you just go to Lord Ming and tell him you're talented and have management experience? Uncle Lee turned his head expressionlessly to stare at the young man. What do you think? If the world were that simple, everyone would succeed. Wait for my new plan. Inside carriage number 5, the thug car. While eating dinner, Biaozi chatted with Lao and casually observed the slaves outside. But then, he seemed to notice something out of the corner of his eye and froze. Seeing Biaozi's reaction, Lao also followed his gaze. Upon spotting the 9 additional heavy machine guns mounted on the ceiling of the thug car, his mouth twitched slightly before he lowered his head to continue chewing on his steamed bun. Delicious. I love it. I hope I can still eat it tomorrow. Thank goodness. Biaozi suddenly let out a sigh of relief and whispered to Lao, glancing at Jichaku, who was eating at the end of the thug car. Lord Meng touched her last time, so it shouldn't be a big deal. True. Lao nodded in agreement. At least this indicated that Lord Meng had a normal sexual orientation, even if he was a bit picky. Otherwise, if Lord Meng didn't engage with women or have any particular preferences, it would be easy to worry that he might have some psychological issues. And for someone with psychological issues, it wouldn't be surprising if, one day, he decided to just slaughter everyone on the train in a bad mood. Time to sleep. Inside the stellar train, Chen Meng looked at the remaining 12,000 units of iron ore on the train panel. This amount wasn't quite enough, so he decided to sleep first and upgrade the remaining components tomorrow after the mining was done. Then, he could probably upgrade the train to level 3. That night, he slept soundly and had many dreams. However, the thugs and slaves on the stellar train slept somewhat restlessly that night, partly because of the additional 9 heavy machine guns above their heads, and partly because they couldn't quite figure out what Lord Ming was thinking. It was a bit unnerving. Especially for Lao and Biaozi, who barely slept at all. Soon the next evening arrived. Chen Meng looked at the 134,000 units of iron ore on the train panel, a hint of surprise in his eyes. Today, the slaves had mined a whopping 120,000 units of iron ore, 10,000 units more than yesterday. It had only been a day. Had the new slaves' mining efficiency increased so much? No way. He looked strangely at the 3D diagram of the train on the control panel screen, with its 100+ internally facing heavy machine guns. Could it be the influence of these things? Seems like the iron ore spent upgrading the internal fire control system wasn't wasted. Could this be considered a hidden supermodel effect? Then he turned his attention to the remaining components, such as the fabrication table. The fabrication table had been upgraded to level 2 last time, allowing him to produce level 2 energy stones, with each one costing 5,000 units of iron ore. He hadn't continued upgrading it then. After all, level 2 energy stones were more than enough for his current needs. Higher level energy stones weren't necessary. But he could upgrade it to level 10 to see the supermodel effects. He had enough iron ore now. After spending 6,000 units of iron ore. The fabrication table component was also upgraded to level 5. Fabrication table level 5 supermodel effect, none. Chapter 94, your train has reached level 3. The supermodel effect is none. Chen Meng thoughtfully gazed at the level 5 supermodel effect. He had been upgrading his accessories to level 5 first, fearing such a situation. If the level 5 supermodel effect was none, then the level 10 supermodel effect would undoubtedly be the same. However, this also answered a question that had been lingering in his mind. He possessed a level 0 authority of infinite upgrade, which allowed him to continuously upgrade his accessories, such as armor and pickaxe production line, to level 5 and even level 10. But other train conductors didn't have this ability. So, what would they do? When a train reached level 4, how would they face level 4 monsters without level 4 armor? How would they mine the higher level resource ores without level 4 pickaxes? Now, he had the answer. When a train reached level 4, higher quality accessories would likely become available to replace the lower quality ones currently in use. Therefore, it made sense that the level 5 fabrication table had no supermodel effect. After all, the only effect of upgrading the fabrication table was the ability to produce higher level energy stones. Chen Meng shifted his gaze from the fabrication table to the 2 ammunition production lines. The 5.56 mm rifle ammunition production line and a 12.7 mm heavy machine gun ammunition production line. After consuming nearly 20,000 units of copper ore, he upgraded both accessories to level 10. They each gained 4 supermodel effects. 5.56 mm rifle ammunition production line level 5 supermodel effect. When producing bullets, the bullets can be imbued with fire, which is highly effective against wood attribute monsters. The price remains unchanged. 5.56 mm rifle ammunition production line level 10 supermodel effect. When producing bullets, the bullets can be imbued with ice, which is highly effective against fire attribute monsters. The price remains unchanged. 12.7 mm heavy machine gun ammunition production line level 5 supermodel effect. When producing bullets, the bullets can split into 3 mid-air while maintaining their original power. The price remains unchanged. 12.7 mm heavy machine gun ammunition production line level 10 supermodel effect. When producing bullets, the bullets can penetrate armor, making them highly effective against heavily armored monsters. The price remains unchanged. Phew. Chen Meng took a deep breath as he sat in front of the control panel. These supermodel effects were undeniably powerful. Without increasing the cost, they significantly enhanced the destructive capabilities of his weapons. At this point, almost all the accessories in the stellar train had been upgraded, each with its own supermodel effect. Now, it was time to upgrade the train itself. He looked at the conditions required to upgrade the train to level 3. Upgrade conditions: the train must have 10 carriages, 6 essential vehicle components must be completed, 5,000 units of level 2 iron ore must be consumed, and the total level of all accessories in the train must exceed 40. All conditions were met, and some were even exceeded. Without further delay, the next moment American Samoa 50000 units of iron ore disappeared from the train, a white light flashed across the control panel, and a semi-transparent screen appeared in front of him. Your train has reached level 3. More craftable accessories and additional personalized and practical functions have been unlocked. Chen Meng looked at the train panel with anticipation. Train name: Stellar. Train level: 3. Train accessories: level 10 car blade, level 13 spider leg, level 10 car audio, level 10. Number of carriages: 10. Ore units: 78,000 units of iron ore, 0 units of wood, 112,000 units of copper ore. Inheritance value: 0. Upgrade conditions: the train must have 18 carriages, 4 essential vehicle components must be completed, 10,000 units of level 2 iron ore must be consumed, and the total level of all accessories in the train must exceed 80. P.S. Before upgrading to level 4, the train must undergo a class change. The available options are mechanical train and flesh train. Both options have their corresponding tasks, which must be completed to successfully change the train's class. Finally, the train had reached level 3. The exterior of the stellar train remained unchanged. Upgrading the train didn't enhance its combat power but increased its base speed and unlocked more craftable accessories and functions. For example, the base speed of a level 2 train was 130 km per hour. After upgrading to level 3, the base speed increased to 160 km per hour. This was a marginal improvement. Additionally, 9 more craftable accessories were unlocked. Among them, 4 vehicle components were mandatory. To upgrade to level 4, these 4 components had to be crafted first. The remaining 5 craftable accessories were optional, though for most people, these optional accessories were essentially mandatory. After all, without crafting these optional accessories, it would be impossible to meet the total accessory level required for the train's upgrade. Unless one had other means to obtain accessory blueprints. Furthermore, the most noticeable change was the addition of the inheritance value on the train panel. His inheritance value was currently 0. With a sufficiently high inheritance value, he could trigger more fortuitous encounters in advanced regions. There were only a few sources for obtaining inheritance value. For example, taking in children under the age of 12 into the train, or using the Doomsday marriage certificate to host a Doomsday wedding for the survivors in the train. The former proved that even in the apocalypse, some were willing to consider the continuation of humanity. The latter proved that even in the apocalypse, true love still existed in a world where morality had collapsed. However, so far, he hadn't encountered a single child, let alone one under 12. Even teenagers aged 15 or 16 were nowhere to be seen. Pessimistically, in the harsh environment of the apocalypse, it was likely that such individuals had a hard time surviving past the first year. As for the Doomsday marriage certificate, he hadn't found anyone to use it on yet. But there was no rush. Even with an inheritance value, it would only be effective in advanced regions, and he didn't plan to venture there anytime soon. As he looked at the 9 craftable vehicle components, he finally figured out how to repair damaged train accessories. Mechanical nanite spider, yellow tier accessory, requires 1000 units of iron ore to craft. Combat training virtual space, yellow tier accessory, requires 1000 units of iron ore to craft. Internal space stabilizer, yellow tier accessory, requires 1000 units of iron ore to craft. Individual exoskeleton production line, yellow tier accessory, requires 1000 units of iron ore to craft. These 4 accessories were mandatory and essential for upgrading the train to level 4. Chen Meng's eyes flashed with intrigue. These 4 craftable accessories were all quite powerful. The first, the nanite spider, was used to repair damaged accessories. Before this accessory, all damaged accessories were irreparable and had to be used as is. If they became unusable, one had to craft a new one. Its appearance was a bit late, only becoming available at level 3. But this made sense. After all, most level 1 and 2 trains didn't have expensive accessories. If one broke, it wasn't a big deal to craft a new one. Unlike him, whose accessories were all high level. If one broke, replacing it would bankrupt even someone with ample resources. The second and fourth accessories. Both were designed to enhance individual combat capabilities. The former improved combat skills, while the latter was an individual exoskeleton armor, further enhancing individual combat abilities. He read the description of the latter. It wasn't heavy armor, nor was it a mech. It was more like a simplified version of a steel exoskeleton that fit snugly on the body, enhancing overall physical capabilities. It didn't provide defense, couldn't withstand bullets, nor could it endure monster attacks. It was worn under clothes, making it invisible from the outside. However, Chen Meng narrowed his eyes slightly. He had always felt that enhancing individual combat capabilities was a pseudo-need, as the train usually handled most of the combat. But after reaching level 3, 2 accessories designed to enhance individual combat capabilities appeared. And both were among the craftable accessories. As the saying goes, before Peng created the heavens, there was nothing. Only after Peng created the heavens did the world have meaning. This was a natural law. In other words, during the transition from level 3 to level 4, there must be a stage where the train's individual combat capabilities would be severely tested. This test might be part of the class change task or something else. Otherwise, the appearance of these 2 accessories would be meaningless. As for the last mandatory accessory, the internal space stabilizer, his slaves would likely appreciate this accessory. It ensured that no matter how the train moved, whether climbing vertically up walls, floating like a falling leaf in the air, or spiraling vertically upward, the interior space would remain stable and level. No longer would the slaves in the slave carriage be stacked like sardines when the train climbed walls. Not bad. These 4 accessories significantly enhanced the train's capabilities. He then looked at the other 5 non-mandatory craftable accessories. Central air conditioning, yellow tier accessory, requires 1000 units of iron ore to craft. Storage box, green tier accessory, requires 500 units of wood to craft. Permanent shock absorption, yellow tier accessory, requires 1000 units of iron ore to craft. Medical bay, yellow tier accessory, requires 1000 units of iron ore to craft. Unknown component, unknown tier accessory, requires 1 unit of iron ore to craft. After the train undergoes a class change, it will automatically transform into a heavy firepower external accessory corresponding to the chosen class. The effect of the first accessory was obvious. With winter approaching, this accessory would maintain a comfortable temperature inside the train, preventing his slaves from freezing to death. It also had a fresh air function, significantly improving the train's air quality. The second accessory, the storage box, could store up to 1000 units of the same resource. For example, 1000 units of iron ore. Whether it was level 1 or level 2 iron ore, it didn't matter. This would free up a lot of space, though he still felt a level 10 refrigerator was more useful. The third accessory, permanent shock absorption, was a defensive accessory. When the train's external defensive accessories, such as armor, remained intact, it could effectively neutralize the impact of monster collisions. The fourth accessory, the medical bay, could heal most external injuries when one lay inside. He had the level 10 simple first aid kit as a substitute, which was even more effective. The fifth accessory. This was the cheapest accessory he had ever seen, requiring only 1 unit of iron ore to craft. However, it couldn't be crafted yet. It would only become available after the train underwent a class change. If the train became a mechanical train, it would gain a heavy firepower external accessory corresponding to that class. The same applied if it became a flesh train. These 9 craftable accessories were the most significant changes after the stellar train reached level 3. It was worth noting from level 1 with 17 craftable accessories, level 2 with 12, to level 3 with 9, the number of craftable accessories decreased as the train leveled up. Many basic accessories, such as the telescope, were no longer available. Other subtle changes were hidden in the control panel and train panel, not as immediately apparent as the panel's display, requiring him to explore them himself. For example, the personalized customization carriage feature, introduced in level 2, now had a new function. The carriage equipped with the 40-tube cherry blossom rocket launcher was originally an open-air carriage, with open sides and a roofless top. The downside was that the accessories were prone to damage due to the lack of external armor protection. After reaching level 3, a more advanced version of the open-air carriage could be crafted. The open-air carriage now had enclosed sides, with the rocket launcher hidden inside. When needed, the roof armor would retract into the carriage, and a lift platform would raise the firepower equipment, allowing it to roar and fire in a blaze of glory. A highly practical function. The price wasn't high. Upgrading one open-air carriage to the advanced version only required 1000 units of iron ore. He had 2 carriages, so upgrading both would cost 2000 units of iron ore. The additional armor on the roof of the open-air carriage didn't require extra iron ore. It had already been consumed during previous armor upgrades. Furthermore, the train control panel now had 3 additional buttons. Family planning. Immediate self-destruct. Immediate ejection. Pressing the first button would release a spray in the carriage, preventing all members from becoming pregnant, except for creatures in the breeding carriage. He immediately pressed this button. For now, he didn't want anyone on the train to get pregnant. The second button was straightforward. Pressing it would cause the train to self-destruct, unleashing massive destructive power. Chen Meng looked at this button, his lips twitching slightly. If he accidentally pressed it one day, he'd be sent straight to the afterlife. But the next moment, a transparent plastic cover appeared around the button, enclosing it. The plastic cover had a fingerprint recognition feature. Only he could open it. If anyone else tried to force it open, the train auxiliary eye would activate the internal fire control system, instantly locking onto the intruder and opening fire. Moreover, even after pressing the button, a confirmation prompt would appear on the control panel screen, requiring a second confirmation before the self-destruct sequence would initiate. This made it much safer. After all, it was highly unlikely that someone would accidentally open the plastic cover, accidentally press the button, and then accidentally confirm it on the screen. If someone were that careless, then it was only natural that Yama, the king of hell, might accidentally scratch their name off the book of life and death. Chapter 95, Choose the Lesser of Two Evils. The above summarizes all the changes and new functionalities after the stellar train was upgraded to level 3. As for the newly added immediate ejection button, it's quite straightforward. When the train encounters an insurmountable crisis, pressing this button will eject the train conductor from the control seat into the sky. Whether there's a parachute or how one would survive in the Doomsday abyss without the train is not the button's concern. Its only job is to eject. The rest is beyond its scope. After ejection, the train will automatically initiate an irreversible 10-second countdown before exploding. Experiencing a no-rope bungee jump before death might actually be quite interesting. After all, Chen Ming believed that 90% of the world's population had never tried such a niche extreme sport. It would be a worthwhile experience before meeting one's end. Chen Ming exhaled deeply, leaning back in his recliner with slight fatigue. Although he hadn't done any physical labor, inspecting each vehicle component's information, pondering their usage scenarios, and checking for subtle changes on the control panel was mentally exhausting. It wasn't physically taxing, but it was mentally draining. He lit a cigarette, letting it dangle from his lips as he leaned back in his chair. After a moment of contemplation, he decided to relax and picked up the intercom, send Jichuku over. Soon Lord Mang. The train room door slowly opened, and Jichuku, looking pitifully obedient, walked in. She knelt on the floor as usual, awaiting instructions. Chen Meng glanced at Jichuku, his brows slightly furrowed. He remembered she wasn't wearing this outfit last time. Today, she had changed into a white strapless dress, low-cut and seemingly without undergarments, giving her an aura of purity, like an untouchable fairy. This starkly contrasted with her kneeling posture, which exuded submission. Where did you get those clothes? He hadn't changed his own clothes for days, yet here was a slave already in fresh attire. Was her living condition better than his? I borrowed them from a friend when I heard you were calling for me. Why? I was afraid you might get bored. A change of clothes might make things feel fresh. Chen Meng didn't respond, only nodding silently. It was a reasonable and thoughtful move. He scrutinized Jichuku kneeling on the floor and beckoned her over. Jichuku, ever obedient, walked over and knelt in front of him, placing her arms on her legs as she waited patiently. Good. Chen Meng hooked his leg around Jichuku, pulling her under the control panel. He lay back in his chair, patting her head. Begin. 3 minutes later. Chen Meng frowned and reopened his eyes. Something felt off. He then spent some time browsing the control panel screen until he found a variety show Jichuku had once participated in. After clicking play, he nodded in satisfaction and leaned back in his chair. Now it felt right. On the variety show, Jichuku appeared as a goddess, her eyes sparkling as she covered her mouth while laughing, seemingly untouchable. Yet under the control panel, she exhibited a completely different demeanor. This contrast was what he enjoyed. In his previous life, he had experienced too much, raising his threshold to the point where ordinary interactions no longer stirred him. He preferred these mental and emotional experiences. 15 minutes later. Chen Ming placed his feet on Jichuku's shoulders as she knelt obediently beside him. He lit a cigarette, relaxed, and chuckled softly. Speak. What reward do you want? Lord Mang. Jichuku, still kneeling, massaged Chen Ming's calves with her delicate hands and whispered, Chuck was already a level 1 slave. I don't need to do any daily chores. Moreover, Lord Mang is the strongest and most charismatic train conductor I've ever met. Since the Doomsday began, I've never felt as safe as I do on this train. Chuck was already very content. If possible, I have a best friend, also a celebrity, named Yang Yao. She's even more beautiful than me, and she is still a virgin. Shortly after the Doomsday began, I lost contact with her. The last time we spoke, she said she was hiding in the safe room of her villa in Shea City, in the Shea Plain. By now, her food and water reserves should be running low. Lord Mang, if you meet her, you'll surely like her. Chen Ming's smile gradually faded, and he looked at Jichuku with a calm expression. After a long pause, he exhaled a thin stream of pale blue smoke into her face and said softly, You want me to travel that far to save someone? The Shea Plain was a green zone. It bordered the Iron Ridge Wasteland, located at the northernmost edge of the wasteland. Crossing the Doomsday Abyss and heading north for about an hour would lead to the Shea Plain. Jichuku didn't dare meet Lord Ming's gaze, lowering her head as she removed Chen Ming's shoes and socks, gently massaging his calves. Chen Ming didn't say anything more, only speaking nonchalantly after a moment. Is there really someone that pure in the entertainment industry? Whenever investors approached her, I would take the fall for her. That's quite noble of you. She came from a wealthy family, while I didn't. She helped me a lot in the past. One more drop of ink on a piece of paper doesn't make much of a difference. So she's not as skilled as you? I'll teach her. How? Jichuku looked up into Chen Ming's eyes and slowly placed his toes in her mouth, mumbling softly, like this. Is this okay? Has she been on variety shows? Yes. Good. Chen Ming nodded, leaning back in his chair again. He waved his hand tiredly. Go for now. If we ever head to the Shea Plain, I'll consider stopping by Shea City. In Thug Car number 5. Lashu, who had been whispering with Biaozi, coughed lightly and pretended to discuss serious matters by looking out the window as Jichaku returned. Only after Jichaku walked to the back of the car did the two exchange glances, their eyes filled with concern. What do we do? Biaozi looked at Lao with a complicated expression. Lord Meng called Jichaku over again. This is the second time. How do we handle her? Didn't you claim to be the best at solving such problems? Think of something. Last time, he had been ready to make a move. But Jichaku had eaten too much, so he didn't proceed. Up until now, no one on the stellar train had done anything with Jichaku. Fu Lao took a deep breath, his brows tightly knit, and said hoarsely, let's sort this out first. Lord Meng has called Jichaku in twice now, which means he's quite satisfied with her service. At this point, neither of us can touch her. Being in the same circle as a superior, even peripherally, is a big taboo. If Lord Meng had lost interest, it would have been fine. But he called her again, which makes it inappropriate. But Lord Meng also promised the slaves. He's likely caught in a dilemma. He enjoys Jichaku's service but can't publicly go back on his promise without losing face. Since he likes her, he can't let the other slaves have her. So what's the solution? Biaozi asked impatiently. I don't know. Lao scratched his head anxiously. The main issue is that I can't read Lord Meng's true intentions. Maybe he doesn't care at all, and we're just overcomplicating things. Should we ask him? Are you crazy? Even if Lord Meng is in a bind, would he admit it? Here's what we'll do. Lao took a deep breath and came up with a solution. If we let Jichaku go and it turns out we misunderstood Lord Meng's intentions, he might get angry. But if Lord Meng doesn't have such intentions and we act on our own, he'll also get angry. Choose the lesser of two evils. Clearly, the latter would result in lighter consequences. So we'll proceed with the second assumption. Jichaku definitely can't be let go, and in reality, she can't be let go anyway. Lord Meng said the slave with the highest mining output could have her. But the top 100 miners are all goblins. They don't care about women, only mining. They don't even glance at Jichaku. So it works out perfectly. This is the best solution I can think of. What do you think? Biaozi spread his hands, looking helpless. Train conductor Zhu, I'm just a fighter. You're the deputy train conductor. This is your call. Fine. Lao steeled himself, gritting his teeth. I'll take responsibility. If Lord Meng questions us, I'll handle it. Let's proceed. As Biaozi walked away, Lao exhaled deeply, wiping the cold sweat from his forehead. He slumped into his seat and sighed. Being the deputy train conductor wasn't easy. Especially since he couldn't read Lord Meng's thoughts. Although he wasn't skilled at deciphering superiors' intentions, he usually had a rough idea. But with Lord Meng, he was completely in the dark. He truly didn't know what Lord Meng was thinking. As a second-in-command, the primary task was often to read between the lines and handle matters the superior couldn't voice openly. Staying in the second-in-command position for long wasn't easy. Often, when things went wrong, the fallout landed on the second-in-command. Soon it was time for the slaves to finish their work for the day. The stellar train was bustling as the slaves handed in their pickaxes and lined up to receive their evening meals. Meanwhile, Chen Meng sat in the train room, looking at the train panel. Before upgrading the train to level 4, he needed to complete a train profession change quest to determine the train's direction. Only after completing the quest could the train upgrade to level 4, and the quest could only be completed in green zones. Once the quest was completed and the train upgraded, returning to lower level zones would be impossible. He wouldn't head to higher level zones until all the resource mines in the Iron Ridge wasteland were depleted. However, it didn't hurt to look at the quests in advance. The flesh train had 5 different quests to choose from. Completing any one of them would allow the train to upgrade. Flesh train profession change quests. S rank difficulty, kill 3 level 6 monsters. A rank difficulty, kill 3 level 5 monsters. B rank difficulty, kill 1 level 5 monster. C rank difficulty, kill 1 level 4 monster. D rank difficulty, kill 1 level 3 monster. The S rank quest was absurd. Killing 3 level 6 monsters with a level 3 train? Honestly, Chen Meng didn't know who could pull it off, except perhaps himself. If the resource mines in the Iron Ridge wasteland provided enough materials to upgrade the armor to level 6 and the firepower accessory level, he could do it. As for other trains, he couldn't imagine how they could complete this quest without the infinite upgrade level 0 privilege. Green tier vehicle components could only be upgraded to level 3, and yellow tier components to level 5. Without blue tier firepower components, they wouldn't even be able to penetrate the monster's defenses. Even with blue tier firepower components, without sufficiently leveled armor, the train could easily be dismantled by a level 6 monster charging through the firepower. The S rank quest was nearly impossible. The D rank quest, however, was relatively simple. A normally developed level 3 train, not one that had been upgraded to the extreme, could easily kill a level 3 monster. But the quest could only be completed in green zones, and killing a level 3 monster in a green zone wasn't easy. While you might avoid high-level monsters, they would chase you down. The quality of the unknown large firepower component obtained after completing the quest varied based on the difficulty level. D rank would yield a green tier component, C rank yellow, B rank blue, A rank purple, and S rank red. Additionally, completing higher difficulty quests would display a higher potential level on the train panel. Higher potential levels could lead to many fortuitous encounters in the future. In higher level zones, the train's name on the leaderboard would also include its profession, direction, and potential level. This explained why the dozen or so level 3 trains in the Iron Ridge Wasteland were reluctant to leave for green zones. Firstly, the Iron Ridge Wasteland was relatively safe, while green zones were much more dangerous. They wanted to build up their resources before heading there. Secondly, they aimed to complete higher difficulty quests to obtain higher tier unknown large firepower components. After upgrading to level 3, none of the 9 craftable components were external firepower components. From level 1 to level 3, the only firepower component available was the makeshift heavy machine gun. Even for a level 3 train, the makeshift heavy machine gun remained the primary means of attack. In other words, the unknown large firepower component was the only firepower component for a level 3 train, and it was a heavy firepower component. It was likely the train's greatest asset when venturing into green zones. Naturally, the higher the tier, the better. Chapter 96, Mechanical Train Job Change Quest, a red grade unknown large firepower component. Chen Meng's eyes narrowed slightly. His job change direction was definitely towards the mechanical train. If possible, he would certainly hope to have a red grade unknown large firepower component. Unfortunately, the job change quests for the mechanical train and the flesh train were not the same. If the S-rank difficulty job change quest for the mechanical train also involved killing 3 level 6 monsters, then it would be much simpler for him. After developing to the extreme in the Iron Ridge Wasteland, he could head to the green zone, kill 3 level 6 monsters, and complete the quest directly. However, the job change quest for the mechanical train was far more complicated. The most important point was that there were only 2 chances to accept the job change quest. The quest must be completed within 24 hours of accepting it. If the quest is completed without first accepting it, it would be considered invalid. For example, in the case of the flesh train's job change quest, if the train happened to kill 3 level 6 monsters without having accepted the S-rank difficulty job change quest, it wouldn't count. The quest must be accepted first, and then completed. If both attempts to accept the job change quest end in failure, the train would be stuck at level 3 forever, unable to upgrade to level 4. Mechanical Train Job Change Quest. S-rank difficulty. You need to set up a static maze inside the train and designate a starting point and an end point. After accepting the quest, a Machina robot will appear at the designated starting point. If the robot fails to complete the maze within half an hour, the quest is considered completed. P.S. The robot possesses advanced thinking abilities beyond normal humans and the running speed of an average adult male. When completing this quest, the train can have a maximum of 18 carriages. You are not allowed to attack the robot, and the maze must have at least one path connecting the starting point to the end point. A-rank difficulty. You need to trigger the hidden quest human-machine romance through verbal training, causing your train auxiliary eye to develop human emotions. Then, spend 100,000 units of iron ore to craft a body for it. After sharing a room with it once, the quest will be completed. P.S. The train auxiliary eye that you train and complete the hidden quest with will possess genuine human emotions. Try not to get too close to other women on the train, lest the eye presses the immediate self-destruct button. Each eye that completes the hidden quest will have a different personality, influenced by the train conductor during its development. B-rank difficulty. You need to acquire enough Murphy stones to upgrade both the simple first aid kit or medical bay and the individual exoskeleton production line to level 10. Using the level 10 supermodel effect of both, convert all the bones in your body into mechanical bones to complete the quest. P.S. If your bones are damaged, nanite mechanical spiders can enter through your mouth or nose to begin repairs. No need to worry. C-rank difficulty. You need to transfer the train conductor's authority to any member of the train. If they transfer the authority back to you within 24 hours, the quest is completed. P.S. Train members with blood relations are also eligible. D-rank difficulty. You need to craft 18 makeshift heavy machine guns and upgrade all of them to level 3. P.S. The 12.7mm heavy machine gun ammunition production line must also be upgraded to level 3. Chen Meng looked at the several hundred words describing the mechanical train job change quest, his lips twitching slightly. He finally understood why, shortly after joining the train radio, he once saw 2 level 3 train conductors arguing. One of them had said, "You brainless fool who's preparing to switch to the flesh train, what's the point of talking to you?" At the time, he thought it was just a simple insult. Now he knew. It wasn't just a simple insult. The flesh train's job change quest was indeed much simpler, no, not simpler, since killing those high-level monsters was still difficult, but the quest description was straightforward. Just kill. The higher the level of the monsters killed, the greater the rewards after the job change. Extremely simple, straightforward, and easy to understand. Unlike the mechanical train's job change quest, which was many times more complicated. Train conductors with little education might not even fully understand the quest description. Reading comprehension is something that seems universal, but in reality, many people lack it. Chen Meng carefully examined the job change quests. First, he immediately ruled out the A-rank difficulty quest. He had no interest in triggering some ridiculous hidden quest like human-machine romance and having a passionate love affair with an eye. If the eye got upset or threw a tantrum and pressed the immediate self-destruct button, who would he turn to for justice? Even though the quest was high-level, he had no desire to attempt it. Just the thought of spending all day verbally training the train auxiliary eye in hopes of triggering the hidden quest felt incredibly stupid to him. He had a bit of a psychological aversion and couldn't tolerate doing something so foolish. It reminded him of those anime he'd seen in his past life where people fell in love with gun girls or mecha girls, and he couldn't help but frown at the thought. As for the B-rank difficulty quest, Murphy Stones. After this quest appeared on the job change panel, the train auxiliary eye also had information about this item. It was a special item that could only be obtained in green or higher level advanced zones and was quite rare. Its effect was to allow a component to ignore its level cap and upgrade one more level. It was somewhat similar to his infinite upgrade, but it was a one-time use and could only upgrade by one level. Honestly, this quest was actually quite suitable for him. Normally, completing this B-rank difficulty quest would require at least a dozen Murphy Stones, which weren't easy to obtain. But for him, with his infinite upgrade, it would be a breeze. However, he wasn't too keen on transforming himself into a robot. Unless he was severely injured and the medical bay couldn't help, forcing him to use mechanical bones to stand again, he wasn't willing to actively choose to become a cyborg. He also wasn't too comfortable with the idea of those nanite spiders crawling into his nose and running around inside his body. It reminded him of a movie he'd seen in his past life about an Egyptian pharaoh. The C-rank difficulty quest was also out of the question. He did trust Laju and Biaozi quite a bit now, but handing over the train conductor's authority? That was a no-go. The moment he transferred the train conductor's authority, the other person would gain full control of the train, and killing him would be as simple as a thought. Handing someone a blade invites thoughts of murder. Even if the other person had no intention of betraying him, willingly handing over the stellar train's authority would make it hard for them not to consider rebellion. After all, holding the train conductor's authority would give them an absolute advantage. Human nature can't withstand such tests. Not just Laju. Even if his long-lost father suddenly appeared out of nowhere, he wouldn't hand over the train conductor's authority. In fact, he'd probably tell him to go to hell, wondering where this so-called father came from. He was genuinely curious, had anyone ever completed this quest? What kind of relationship could withstand such a test in the apocalypse? After ruling out these three quests, he was left with only the S-rank difficulty quest and the D-rank difficulty quest to choose from. Sigh. Chen Meng let out a tired sigh. The D-rank difficulty quest was simple and could be easily completed, but he felt a bit unwilling. If he were on the flesh train side, he could complete an S-rank job change quest, but on the mechanical train side, he was stuck with a D-rank quest. The flesh train was better. Everything was about strength. If you could kill, you got rewards. Simple, brutal, but efficient. Unlike the mechanical train, which always demanded something from you, almost like a cult ritual. You had to either fall in love with an eye or transform yourself into a cyborg, proving your devout faith in the cult of the machine god, before you could successfully change jobs. If it weren't for the fact that the flesh train's subsequent component upgrade methods didn't align well with his infinite upgrade, and he wasn't particularly fond of the flesh train, he would have seriously considered switching to the flesh train side. As for the S-rank difficulty quest on the mechanical train side, it was pure nonsense. How much space was there on a train anyway? Setting up a maze inside the train that could stop a machina robot, with the additional restriction that the train could only have a maximum of 18 carriages when accepting the quest. How was that even possible? If there wasn't a carriage limit, it would be much simpler. After all, crafting a regular carriage only cost 100 units of iron ore. Crafting 5,000 carriages would only cost 500,000 units of iron ore. He could set the starting point at the last carriage and the end point at the front of the train, with no maze at all. Just run. Try running through 5,000 carriages in half an hour at an adult male speed. He could easily complete the quest that way. Unfortunately, that path was completely blocked. You also couldn't attack the robot, otherwise his internal fire control system would come in handy. With over 100 heavy machine guns pointing inward, he'd like to see how tough that robot was. The train was just so small. Wait. Chen Meng, who had been lying on the chair sighing in exhaustion, suddenly had a flash of inspiration. He sat up straight, his eyes fixed on the S-rank difficulty quest in the mechanical train job change panel. Wait a minute. Maybe there was a way after all. The train's interior space was limited, but he had a level 10 refrigerator. A level 10 refrigerator had an internal space of 100 square meters, and the refrigerator could hold more refrigerators inside. He could just craft 100 refrigerators. Stuff all 100 refrigerators into one refrigerator and create a massive maze. Hey. That might actually work. The robot with its superhuman thinking abilities would open a refrigerator door, only to find an open space with 2 doors. Open the left door, look back, and realize it's a refrigerator door. Go back, open the right door, look back again. Hey, still a refrigerator door. Chen Ming's eyes sparkled with excitement. He sat up straight at the control panel, grabbed a pen, and began sketching out the maze idea that had just flashed through his mind. One level 10 refrigerator, including crafting and upgrading, required 4,500 units of iron ore. 100 level 10 refrigerators would cost 450,000 units of iron ore. Not too much. The Iron Ridge Wasteland could supply him with enough to complete this S-rank difficulty quest. Spending 450,000 units of iron ore for a red-grade unknown large firepower component and S-rank potential was an extremely good deal. That was a no-brainer. The only thing left to figure out was how to use these 100 refrigerators to create a highly complex maze. He had the inspiration, but his ideas for designing the maze were still quite rudimentary. A proper maze needed to ensure that the path to the exit was extremely well hidden, with many time-wasting detours and countless misleading branches. This was a technical task. He wasn't very good at it. But back when he was running a business in his past life, he always believed in one thing: leave professional tasks to professionals. The boss doesn't need to be an expert in everything, the boss just needs to make decisions and take risks. With that in mind, he immediately picked up the intercom. Laju, go ask the slaves if any of them have experience designing mazes. I need someone to help me design the most complex maze possible. Got it. Laju responded quickly. It was just after the slaves had finished their work, and they were all eating. After delegating the task, Chen Meng continued sketching out his maze ideas on paper, spending about half an hour to draw a 2D version of a rectangular maze. Chen Meng leaned back in his chair, holding the paper up to his face, and nodded in satisfaction. Not bad. With this level of difficulty, it would take at least 5 or 6 minutes for anyone to get from the start to the finish. Just then there was a knock on the door. Come in. Lao entered, leading a young man who looked to be in his mid-20s. Lord Meng, this slave says he was a game designer before the apocalypse and is a maze enthusiast. He has a lot of experience in creating complex mazes. Oh? Chen Meng sized up the young man, who looked to be around 24 or 25, and handed him the maze he had just drawn. Try this maze. Can you solve it in under a minute? I'll give it a shot. The young man nervously took the pen and paper, bent over the table, and quickly began tracing the path. Chen Meng was patient. He leisurely lit a cigarette, leaned back in his chair, and exhaled a puff of smoke, casually saying, "No pressure. Just testing your skills. Take your time." Before he could finish done, the young man handed the paper back, the correct path now clearly marked. Chen Meng looked down at the paper, at the maze he had spent half an hour perfecting, now solved in the time it took him to light a cigarette. He glanced at the cigarette in his hand, then up at the young man, and remained silent for a long time. He suddenly felt a strong sense of defeat. He had worked hard for half an hour, convinced that his maze was flawless. And yet, in the time it took him to light a cigarette, it had been solved? What the hell? Rate the difficulty of this maze, he said expressionlessly. Chapter 97, What are you trying to do? Appeal to the Emperor. Ahem. As soon as Chen Meng finished speaking, Lao, who was standing nearby, unconsciously cleared his throat with a fist to his mouth. Cough, 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 cough your mom's head off. Chen Meng turned to Lao and scolded him in frustration. I want to hear honest feedback, not some flattering nonsense. Don't give hints when it's not the time for them. And next time, if you must hint, can you at least not use such outdated methods? Do you think I'm deaf? Lao, feeling awkward, avoided eye contact with Lord Meng, his gaze drifting aimlessly. Come here. Chen Meng turned back to the young man, frowning as he asked, Tell me, how did you do it? I designed so many complex forks in the maze. The young man took a deep breath before summoning the courage to speak. This is a relatively simple topological structure of a maze. Although it looks winding and twisting, it's essentially a straight line. The start and end points are the two ends of this line. And the forks are just branches along this line. So, the young man pulled a sharp stone from his pocket and carefully traced all the routes of the maze, peeling the entire maze off the paper. Then, holding the maze that had been peeled off the paper, he grasped both ends and gave it a slight pull. The maze, which had just appeared incredibly complex, now faintly transformed into a straight line, with the forks he had designed branching off like limbs from the trunk of a tree. If you stretch this maze infinitely, you can quickly find the correct route. You didn't do that earlier. My spatial awareness is a bit stronger. I simulated it quickly in my mind. This way of presenting it is to make it more understandable. Chenming remained expressionless for a long time before finally speaking. As a slave, you carry such a sharp stone with you? Huh? The young man was momentarily stunned, his face turning pale as he realized he had exposed something by being too engrossed. His voice trembled uncontrollably. I didn't want to be robbed anymore. There's a slave who takes 1 unit of iron ore from me every day, then hands it in during the settlement. He's a level 1 slave. I didn't dare speak up. I didn't want to be robbed anymore. The amount of iron ore I dig daily determines how quickly I can be promoted. I want to rise to level 2 soon. So I prepared this, planning to fight to the death if he robs me again. Hearing this, Chenming frowned slightly and turned to look at Laju. Laju, standing nearby, was cursing inwardly. Such a trivial matter, couldn't you have just talked to him privately? What are you trying to do, appeal to the Emperor? Damn it. Did you accidentally pull it out, or did you do it on purpose? You look so young, but you're such a schemer. Though he was cursing in his heart, his face showed unease and panic as he quickly bent over. Lord Mang, this is my oversight. I'll deal with this immediately. All right. Chenming nodded casually, just beat him up. Don't waste a slave. By the way, there's a drawer with the train rules I drafted. Take them and announce them before work starts tomorrow. From now on, follow these rules. After handling this small incident, he leaned back in his chair, closing his eyes and trying to stretch the maze infinitely in his mind. A minute later, he opened his eyes, pulled out a cigarette, and tossed it over. I need to design a maze complex enough to trap a robot. At least one that can hold a robot for half an hour. That robot has intelligence far beyond the average person and the physical strength of an adult male. If you were to design it, what would you suggest? Static maze or dynamic maze? Static. The young man hurriedly and respectfully took the cigarette, though he had no way to light it, and held it in his hand. After a few seconds of thought, he spoke. Generally, to create a sufficiently complex maze, you'd use random algorithm software to generate irregular paths. But we don't have the conditions for that now. However, we can approach it in 6 steps. First, divide the maze area into different sections, say 10 regions, each a separate maze. The correct line passes through each of these mazes. Second, each node should have at least 3 directions, with dead ends accounting for 60% to 70%. If possible, set up 7 layers of nested paths. Third, if it's a 3D maze, there should be at least 3 layers of vertical connections. Fourth, use audio-visual effects for deception mirrors, sound systems, lighting, and misleading guide lights so that mirrored areas account for about 15%. Fifth, ensure a 40% repetition rate across the 10 maze regions. High repetition will confuse people's memory as they test routes, making them doubt whether they've walked this path before, what's commonly known as ghost hitting the wall. Sixth, create progressively scaled path proportions to produce distance illusions. With this, the number of path retreats can be guaranteed to exceed 30% of the total steps, and the necessary nodes can account for. Enough. Chenming interrupted the young man's explanation, stood up from his chair, and personally lit a cigarette for him before patting his shoulder and sighing, "You're a talent. Very professional. Laju, from now on, this kid enjoys level 1 slave treatment on the stellar train. Find the slave who's been robbing him. Let him take care of it himself. What's your name?" The young man, who had been so eloquent moments ago, now looked nervous as he held the cigarette in his mouth. "Lord Mang, my name is Li Shiji." "Good name." Chenming exhaled deeply. "There are refrigerators on the train, each with 100 square meters of space. I want you to use 100 of them to create a sufficiently complex maze that meets my earlier requirements. Make sure that robot can't pass through it in half an hour. Whatever support you need, just ask. We can add more refrigerators, but the maximum is around 130. Think about it tonight and report to me first thing tomorrow morning. We'll discuss it then. If you handle this well. Big reward." "Thank you, Lord Mang." "Thank you, Lord Mang." Li Shiji's eyes sparkled with excitement and eagerness as he repeatedly bowed in gratitude. Meanwhile, Outside the train in the cave, all the slaves had finished dinner. But today, instead of returning to their spots in the train to sleep, they gathered around to watch the spectacle. In the center of the crowd, a slave knelt on the ground, his face filled with fear. Though he wasn't tied up, he didn't dare struggle. Surrounding him were armed thugs maintaining order. Behind the kneeling slave, Li Shiji weighed the baton in his hand before leaning down and whispering into the slave's ear. "Did you enjoy taking my iron ore? Retribution comes when the time is right. Remember this. My name is Li Shiji." The next moment Li Shiji's eyes filled with rage as he swung the baton with more force than he'd ever used in mining, slamming it hard into the back of the kneeling slave. He didn't curse, just gritted his teeth. Like a storm, he didn't stop, hitting the slave again and again. Without holding back. It looked like he was aiming to kill Uncle Lee. In the crowd of onlookers, a young man leaned over to Uncle Lee and whispered, "Look at him, he's made it so easily, and he's just a level 3 slave who recently joined the train. You've been here since the beginning, right? You're a veteran, enjoying level 1 slave treatment. How come you haven't made it yet? Thought of a new plan? Can you shut the hell up?" Uncle Lee, embarrassed and angry, turned to the young man. "Are you some kind of pressure monster? Can you stop pressuring me every day? I'm under a lot of pressure too, you know. Are you placing too much hope in me? Well, I can't place it in myself. I'm clearly unreliable. Shut up. I'll think of something. Of course, I've always believed in you, Uncle Lee." Inside the circle of onlookers, the Aozi stood with his arms crossed, a cigarette dangling from his mouth as he watched the scene with a smile. "Train conductor Zhu, I'll vouch for this, that kid definitely appealed to the Emperor on purpose. Obviously." Lao's face was grim. "You think I can't see that? That kid's a crafty one. I don't like him. Lord Meng seems to like him. Of course Lord Meng likes him. Even though I don't like the kid, he's got talent." At this, Lao paused, hesitating. That kid can stretch an incredibly complex rectangular maze into a straight line in his mind. "Can you do that?" "I tried for a while, and my head's about to explode. Feels like there are countless lines floating in front of my eyes. I'm starting to hallucinate and still can't figure it out. I'm a fighter, train conductor Zhu. If I had that skill, would I have been a guerrilla contractor before? Your brain's only good for being a contractor. If the money's not coming, you're clueless. I'm a fighter, train conductor Zhu. So what?" Biaozi grinned. "Fighters collecting debts, that's my expertise. There's no debt I can't collect. That's why I used to be the boss." Lao snorted dismissively. "Enough. You almost got killed by Hueco. Stop showing off. By the way, you used to be a level 2 train conductor. Do you know why we'd need a massive maze to trap a robot?" "No idea." Biaozi shook his head, his expression serious. "Is Lord Meng having the kid work on this?" "Don't look at me. I really don't know. It's not that I'm not telling you, but the train I used to work on is nothing like Lord Meng's. Saying they're worlds apart is an understatement. But I should warn you, Lord Meng didn't tell you to beat him to death. That kid's going at it without restraint. The slave looks like he's about to die. Also, don't hold a grudge against this kid. Lord Meng's using him to build a maze. After that, he's useless. You're still the second in command on the train, train conductor Zhu. Don't make things ugly. You'll definitely lose out. I know that." Lao sighed. "I'm not stupid enough to hold a grudge against him. It's just that being appealed to the Emperor for the first time is frustrating. He didn't tell me but went to Lord Meng. I don't know what Lord Meng will think, maybe that I've been oppressing the slaves, making them afraid to come to me with issues. Don't worry. This is indeed a lapse in your duty. Exposing problems is the only way to solve them. Take it easy." Lao didn't say more, just stepped forward and said firmly, "That's enough." Then he looked at the half-dead slave on the ground. "Take him inside the train for treatment." Train conductor Zhu. Seeing Lao approach, Li Shiji immediately handed over the baton and whispered. Lao took the baton without expression, then looked at the surrounding slaves and pointed to the iron ore area not far away. "Everyone, get back to the train and sleep. If you're not tired, go over there and dig ore with Doba." The slaves instinctively turned to look at the 100 or so goblin slaves still digging in the iron ore area and shuddered, then rushed toward the train. Those goblins. They're insane. In the past few days, they'd witnessed the goblins' madness. The goblins were still digging when the slaves were asleep and still digging when they woke up, as if they didn't need rest. Like cold-blooded machines working non-stop. Especially Doba. He'd been topping the daily mining chart for days, unchallenged, absolutely unstoppable. At first, they were excited about the daily mining rankings. But after the goblins dominated the top 100 spots every day, they'd grown indifferent. It's too competitive, and it's terrifying, they're like superhumans. Initially, Many of them were seeing goblins for the first time and found it novel. During breaks, they'd try to greet them. But after being called stupid humans and told not to disturb the great goblins mining, they stopped bothering. That Doba seems to be on a lifelong mission to prove his greatness. As the slaves rushed toward the train, Lahu stood still, watching Doba, who was digging with unwavering determination, and sighed. Frankly, his stamina is impressive. Yeah, he's strong. Biaozi nodded, then looked at the female giant among the short goblins with a strange expression. But that woman's also strong. She seems to have locked horns with these goblins, determined to fight to the death. I remember today she tried to talk to Doba and got scolded. She seemed furious and decided to fight it out, to see who's the better digger.